Okay, sorry it took so long to get this video going, but this camera over there is just garbage. What can you do? So hopefully you don't get a lot of, this is still good quality, but if you are a beginner, you want to watch this video for the first section or so, please don't watch the second section. It will mess with you. And if you are already a seasoned instructional designer, watch it all, okay?
Core praxis.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to the channel, Core Praxis in Effect, and today we are hitting a topic that is always very popular and very misleading in many respects, and that is the fable ADDIE model. So what is ADDIE? Now, there is this video that I shot yesterday, and that video that was released yesterday lets you know about instructional design in general and what you can expect to do. So if you're new, this is the section for you. We're going to break out ADDIE in a quick, systematic way, and then we'll make some differentiations and a little bit of details as to whether it is what it is or is not what it is. But that will help you in all events. So let's get started. What is ADDIE in essence? Well, ADDIE is really a process. It's actually a very detailed process that is part of a model. But we're not going to confuse you with that right now. Let's get into what you perhaps know from the video. If you didn't watch the video, watch the video. But if you already know ADDIE, then continue to watch the ADDIE framework. So those 5 stages of analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation. So in the analysis phase, this is basically what happens when you work as an instructional designer. Here are the contexts that are going to be important, though, because there is a difference between instructional systems design and instructional design, and we'll get to it. It differs in the way you work, and it differs in many ways. So when you do analysis, the first stage of analysis is actually to collect data. And as you collect data, you will do that either by sending out surveys or talking to people. You probably will do both. You will also do job observations if you got the capability to do so. If you're on site on a work premise, that may be easier. But if you're working remotely, then that can get challenging. So as an instructional designer, your first attempt is to collect data, and that data will come from different sources. One source will be the audience, the people that you're going to deal with. The other source is going to be the stakeholders, the people that are asking for it. And from all of that, you'll gather all this information and ask specific questions. And the key to analysis is what questions are you asking? As you get better, you'll ask questions that don't waste people's time. But in the beginning, it's always going to be a little bit challenging. You're going to be asking a lot of questions that perhaps are not really relevant or don't really make any sense. And you can run into analysis paralysis. Yep. No, that wasn't me buffering. That's just analysis paralysis. So keep it simple. The first things you want to, when you start your career and you start diving into instructional design, is ask the main questions that anybody will ask about anything. Hey, what are you trying to do? Why do you need it? How is it to be done? When is it to be done? Where is it to be done? Who is involved? So those are the specific basics that you will cover in any project. And therefore, you don't yet know if you have a project. But again, like I mentioned, context matters. So in most cases, if you're working as an instructional designer in a company, someone will reach out to you. And it's either going to be your learning manager or it's going to be someone in the business. If you don't have anybody that you report directly to, let's say in an L&D team, and that's part of what I discussed yesterday in the video, then you will be talking to that business person. But if most likely you'll be working with a team, or at least you're going to be working with a learning manager, let's hope, let's all hope, right? So in that perspective, then most likely people are going to come already with a notion of what you're going to do. Your manager may say, hey, you need to make a learning course. Hey, you need to make a video. Hey, you need to make something. So at that point, there's no need for you to get all buggled up about, oh, what analysis am I going to do? Because the analysis stage in that, it has already pre-decided that you're doing a training content. Now, when you get a little more senior later on, or you may ask some questions, but you also, depending on the culture where you work, that may lead to you not having a job. So be mindful of that, okay? So design, where you get to the design. In the analysis phase, you're designing, okay, good, this is what I'm doing. This is the people that are being affected. This is who are the experts. You identify all of that. Then you get to the actual project kickoff. And that project kickoff is your design stage. That's where you get people together, all those people that we're talking about, and you're setting up an actually project charter. In that project charter, then you'll say, okay, great, we have to make this. These are the people involved and what's going on. And then at that stage, some people say that that's when you set up the instructional objectives. And that could be fine. Turns out that the original model or the original concept doesn't have that in the design stage. But hey, what do you know? Watch the end of the video. So in any way, here we are going to decide what your learning objectives are because you already know what the business needs are. So in that perspective, when you do the analysis, there'll be what is called a gap analysis. And that's basically a gap is just meaning what you want to achieve and where you're at now. So, or where you're at now and what you want to achieve. In the ADDIE process, that is very clear. You're setting a stage. Hey, you're here. This is what's going on now. And this is where you need to be. So to do that, we're going to do this, this, and that, right? So A, B, C, whatever the case. You write your learning objectives, you start setting up a storyboard from that, and all of that is done in collaboration with the people that are involved. The easiest, this could be the hardest part of the project, or it could be the easiest part of the project. It all depends if everything has already been set or not. At times when you're working in a project, maybe it's completely new knowledge, there's not even any existing courses, and there are not even any existing processes. So for that situation, that's where it gets really tricky. That's where you actually need to start thinking more about performance support up front and then instructional design. Now, you're new. You're not expected to know what all of that is. But just think of it in the perspective of being an employee. If you are doing your work, what do you expect people to do? What are you expected to do? So every time you run into a problem, are you going to run to your boss? Or are you going to call your supervisor? No, you will like to probably solve that yourself, right? But how can you do that if you don't have any support? You don't have any type of materials. You don't have documented processes. That's what performance support, deals and comes in. And in a lot of situations, what you're asked to do as a trainer, as an instructional designer, trainer, or learning and development specialist, falls into that category. But hey, this is not something that people managing an LMS want to hear. I've been an LMS administrator, so training managers want to just add content to the LMS. And that's just a reality of the situation. That's just business. So from your perspective, we got the analysis. You figure all that out. You got your gap analysis and you got your findings. You set up the objectives and you set up a storyboard. Usually a storyboard if we're talking about a learning course, right? And a storyboard can be, some people call it the script, some people call it a storyboard. Storyboard really is a visual tool. So you should have some images or some drawings or some specific things that illustrate what's happening. And at that point, you bring in your skills of development where you start writing, creatively. Maybe you set up a case scenario. Maybe you set up a story to convey that technical material and technical content and whatnot. So on a ideal setup or a very quick and ideal setup, when you do this, people already have the processes and the materials. You talk to the subject matter experts. They tell you where things are at. And then you start doing the work and then you revise with them and say, hey, does this look right? Is this the thing? Then they may have some technical jargon and you have to fix all that and you have to do that. So you did your development. You have that approved. When you get that storyboard approved, now you go into the actual tool and you develop the thing. And you develop the thing, whether it's a video, whether it's whatever else, you develop a prototype of it or a proof of it. And then you show it to the people. And then you get more feedback. Once you get that feedback, you apply that feedback, you send it again, and then, there might be 2 or 3 review cycles is what that's called, right? And then someone will say, cool, yeah, this is right. Then you do your quality review and checkups on anything. Make sure you test it on the LMS, or if it's going to be in a learning course, for example. And once you do that, then you had already set up evaluation. Did you set up evaluation? Oh, we didn't say that, did we? Oh, it depends on what part of the process you're working on. So in the original and classic model, you're doing that up front. You're doing that in the analysis phase with the design phase. And the development part also involves writing the test items. So if it's a test, then sure, you do the test items. If it's and some kind of assessment, you'll do that as well. In the classic model, what a lot of people see here, you'll have knowledge checks, which are practice rounds, and then you have the final, say, exam. In most cases, what people are going to see is a multiple choice question. In some other cases, you may be more creative and have something else to do, a project to complete, or some kind of video to watch and some kind of things to write. So it all depends. It really depends on the tasks, ideally, of the job. Now, quick teaser about the ADDIE process, ADDIE model. ADDIE is not a model, or at least it's not a model of education or instructional design or research. Nothing documents that. However, there are some caveats. So, when you hear the history, you'll hear that Florida State University developed ADDIE in 1975, 1973. Well, yes, Florida State University developed the model, but it wasn't called the ADDIE model. It doesn't exist to anybody. Inside of that, what was created, it was a model called the Inner Service Procedures for Instructional Systems Design. And that model is what pretty much influenced every other model following that period. But that, and the details of that, is for tomorrow. Hey, make sure you keep watching here. If you like this video, go ahead and like it. And please subscribe, share it with your friends. And in the comments, please let me know anything else you'd like me to cover. Anything else we need to discuss that perhaps you're not too clear about.